Cheers, everybody. Welcome back to Good Bets, Good Times, the sports betting podcast for bettors who want to level up their skills, bet with intention, and maybe have a little fun along the way. I am your host, Nate Tuttle with NT Sports, and on today's episode, we're breaking down our futures portfolio, what we've locked in so far, where we got some value, and maybe a couple ugly long shots that we're holding tickets on as well. So if you haven't tuned in over the past few weeks, past 11 weeks to be honest, we're on episode 12 now, and we've gone deep on every NFL conference, college football conference, all the contender breakdowns, talked about all of the leans and futures bets that we've been on. And so if you haven't listened to those, feel free to go back through, check those out. Kind of sets the table for all of the bets we're going to talk about today leading up to the season. But you can check out in the show notes or just go directly to ntsports.bio. And don't forget, hey, if you enjoy the podcast and you want to support us, feel free. Go ahead and rate and subscribe and even leave a review. Feedback is welcome around here as well. So, oh man, yeah, we're in the home stretch here. This is our last episode until we actually start doing game previews. Next week is week 0. We'll break down week 0 games. We'll have our college football lines for week 0 and week 1 ready to go. Also, maybe some look-ahead lines. And the week after that, we're getting closer to NFL season kicking off here in a couple weeks. But what's been going on in the league lately? Preseason week 1 is in the books. Preseason week 2 kicks off on Friday night. We've had some big injuries so far. A couple minor things, but big one in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Rashawn Slater, their left tackle, who they just gave a lot of money to recently. Probably one of the best players on the entire team. He's out for the year with a torn patellar tendon, which is a huge loss for them. They do have some depth on the offensive line. Hasn't really moved the market too much, but it definitely hurts the Chargers, especially in January going into the playoffs. And we talked about a few weeks ago, one of the bets we did make is the Chargers to win the AFC at plus 1,400. And this does not help that bet too much. So we're still feeling good about the Chargers overall. But obviously you lose your best offensive lineman, your starting left tackle. That hurts. That hurts. A few quarterback injuries as well. Anthony Richardson, he got jacked up in the preseason game. And his pinky was facing a way that it's not intended to go. Yeah, broken finger. I assume he'll be fine, get a little surgery, correct it, and he'll be back. But, preseason, it's not a good look for A-Rich at this point. And then Jordan Love as well just had surgery on his hand, on his thumb. He's supposed to be back for the regular season, but we will see. Also, not great for our Green Bay Packers futures that we talked about last week. So a couple hits to our early NFL bets, but still feeling good overall. Not going to panic. Not going to panic yet. We need Jordan Love to make it through an entire season. That's what we need. That's what we're betting on. Preseason week 1 was pretty fun. One thing to point out from a betting perspective, the overs in the first week of the preseason went 14-2, which is pretty interesting because historically, unders were big in the preseason, but this year's different. Not 100% why, but there was some pretty solid QB play, I would say, in some of these games. We saw some rookies step up like Shitter Sanders, Jackson Dart. Some guys played quite a few series overall. We had Skylar Thompson from the Steelers throw for 3 touchdowns, played pretty much the entire second half. And trying to figure out what's going on with the preseason, the scoring. And you look to this week 2 lines, if you look at every single total, where they're at now from their opener, and they've all moved up. They've all went up a few points to the over. So we're going to take a look at this. There could be some opportunity to go the other way this week. But at the same time, if this is a trend that is going to continue, we don't want to get a little too overzealous there. But we're going to be monitoring those totals in week 2 to see if we can get some value on going the other way on some of these unders that have moved. Some of them, 2, 3, 4 points. They've gone up since they opened. 5 points in the Bears-Bills game to the over at 40.5. So yeah, we'll take a look at that and talk about it more next week. But it's hard to tell from 1 week if it's a trend or if it's an outlier. But we'll see. These teams, it seems like they are really letting the quarterback sling it. I would say they really want to see what these quarterbacks can do. So, especially the backups. Some of the starters, like even your Joe Burrows, played a few extra series than I think we initially anticipated. Also, we saw some pick sixes. The more you let these quarterbacks, these second, third, fourth string quarterbacks throw the ball around, especially in the second half, it's going to lead to more turnovers. Could help the overs. Defenses, they're still playing pretty basic coverages. So that lends to more offense. Teams are being more aggressive, not just trying to run out the clock and get out of these preseason games. Coaches are actually running legitimate offenses, trying to evaluate these guys in the offensive side of the ball. So it's pretty interesting. New kickoff rule as well. I don't think we really saw any touchbacks. There was one kick return that I know of, Travion Henderson. And I don't know if this continues, but we'll tread lightly. We might get on a couple unders to see if maybe this is a 1 week outlier. We'll evaluate the market, but yeah, all these lines have moved. So if you're looking to bet some overs in week 2, there still could be some opportunity, but it looks like the market has adjusted. So keep that in mind as well. And then, so let's dive into our futures portfolio. We'll look at both NFL and college football. We pretty much broke down both conferences in the NFL, and then also every conference in college football, including the group of 5. So we have a nice little portfolio of future bets that we're sitting on. There's still some that we are eyeing up that we may jump on before the start of the season, particularly in the NFL, as we have a couple more weeks left, 2 more weeks of preseason, and then an off week before the season kicks off. So we'll keep you posted there. Always follow us on the Action Network app, where we put all of our picks and bets in real time with analysis, so you can check that out and follow. I may not post on social right away, or I only talk about it on the podcast once a week. But if you want to see the bets as we put them in play, then go ahead and follow us on Action. So starting with the NFL side, one of the first bets that we put in this season in one of the earlier episodes, the Cincinnati Bengals under 10.5 wins, and we still like this. 10.5 is gone, to be honest. I can double check here, but I don't believe there are any 10.5 still left out there. I think the best you can do is a 9.5 plus 115, which, not 9.5. I would not bet this, to be honest with you. We have the Bengals at 8.8 wins. So at 10.5, there was a ton of value. 9.5, still a little bit. If you get a plus number, I wouldn't hate it. But my ceiling for this Bengals team is 10 wins sneaking into the playoffs. I talked about that a few weeks ago on the AFC contender breakdown. And definitely liking this one. It's hard to bet against Joe Burrow. Not gonna lie. We know this offense, but there's still a lot of concerns on the offensive line and on the defense. We know they brought in Al Golden. You can never count out Burrow dragging this team to 10 wins and a playoff berth. And then once they get in the playoffs, who knows what can happen, just like in 2021. But we're pretty confident at the under 10.5. We got that at minus 145 as well. Like I said, it was right before it dropped to 9.5. So there were many 10.5s out there. So we paid a premium for it, but feeling pretty good about that number for the Cincinnati Bengals. We also locked in the lines pretty early as well. So Detroit under 10.5 wins. We got that at minus 110. This one has moved as well. I think the best you can find is around a minus 130, minus 135 for the under 10.5 for the Lions. And this is a tough one because I do like this Lions team, but they did lose both coordinators, including their offensive mastermind, Ben Johnson. And to be honest, we know the offense is still going to be good. They have too much talent on that side of the ball not to still put up points. But there are questions around the defense. And really it comes down to, one, the price. We project this at 9. We have the lines at 9.6 wins. And at a minus 110 price, we couldn't pass that up. And we know the division's going to be difficult. My favorite to win this division is the Packers, but we know the Vikings are loaded. They have a great roster. A lot of it's going to come down to J.J. McCarthy and quarterback play, and the Bears as well. The Bears got Ben Johnson, and if Caleb Williams can take that next step, if he can work its magic there, they're going to win some games, and this is going to be a very competitive division. So same thing with the Lions. I think they can win 10 games and get into the playoffs and be dangerous, but under 10.5, we're really liking this bet as well. In the NFL side, we talked about our last week in the contenders preview. The one bet we got down for NFC Championship is the Green Bay Packers at plus 1,100. This is going to come down to Jordan Love. We know this Packers team is solid on both sides of the ball. They improved the secondary. They have a great offensive line. They got the running game with Josh Jacobs. They have depth at receiver. They should get Christian Watson back at some point in the season. In this bet here, it's a plus 1,100 bet, and we think this number will give us some opportunity later in the season. We also bet them at plus 275 to win the NFC North, which we project the true odds for the Packers to win the division at plus 240. So got about 25 cents of value on this bet here, if you can still find it. Looks like if we look across the board here, NFC, so the consensus line is plus 950 to win the NFC. We got plus 1,100, which it looks like there's still one out there hanging around if you still want to grab that. And then to win the NFC North, the consensus is 255, and the plus 270 we bet last week is still hanging around too. There's one book that has it, BetMGM. If you have access to that book, you can get a little bit of value there on. I still would bet. If you like this, I would still bet there's some plus 270, plus 260. Wouldn't get any lower than that, though. But the NFC is wide open, in my opinion. And I think if the Packers get into the playoffs, it's most likely because Jordan Love is taking that next step. I believe he has the talent to be one of those top-tier QBs, especially in the NFC. And if he does that and they make the playoffs, then there's no reason that they can't make a run and get to the Super Bowl. And then the AFC side of the ball, we have the Chargers at plus 1,400 to win that conference. We project for the Chargers true odds at around plus 1,300. So a little bit of value there for us. And the same thing here. This is a bet on Harbaugh. This is a bet on Herbert taking that next step. We're trying to buy low on some of these quarterbacks that, though we know have the talent, we know they have the skill level to do it. It's can they put it all together? And obviously losing Rashawn Slater it's a big loss for this offense, but we're trusting in Harbaugh. He's done it before in San Francisco with quarterbacks that were not nearly as talented as Justin Herbert. There are some questions on defense, but I think they'll have enough to make a run, get in the playoffs, maybe win the division. We didn't have much value on them to win in the division. We think that division's also going to be very competitive with the Packers, Broncos, and Raiders, or the Chiefs, Broncos, and Raiders. But at plus 1,400, it's a number that we couldn't pass up to win the AFC. And we are confident it can provide us with a nice hedging opportunity. It doesn't look like, I'm looking across the board here, looks like the best available is plus 1,300 now. So this number has moved a little bit. And we were worried about that after that injury news, if this would go the other way. But like I said, market hasn't adjusted negatively towards the Chargers with Slater being out for the year. So still sitting pretty good there with Chargers at plus 1,400. And then we have a few props. So there's a few more props that we're eyeing up. So we don't bet too many NFL props, but this bet came across my desk, and I had to look into it. And what I found was very surprising, and one that we couldn't pass up, and that's Michael Penix over passing touchdowns for the season at 18.5. Now, a couple things about this bet. No matter how we ran the numbers, we couldn't get anything lower than 24 touchdown passes this year. Obviously, that's projecting that he plays a full season. See, anytime you bet player prop futures, there's injury risk that you need to look at. But this is a buy low on Michael Penix. And the kicker here is that we got this at plus 100. So this is essentially a 50-50 bet. And if our numbers are correct, we have him hitting over 18 or hitting 19 touchdown passes at about, 68% true odds. So at a 50-50 bet, I mean, that's a no-brainer. And we believe this offense is going to take a step forward. The downside is obviously the injury risk, and you'll have Kirk Cousins kind of hanging out in the background, ready to step in. So if Penix struggles and this team wants to make a change, that could happen, and that would kill this bet. But we're confident that is not going to happen. He's got the running game. O-line is okay. They're average. Got London Pitts on the outside. Wish he'd have a few more weapons at the receiver position, but to think this guy's not going to hit at least 19 touchdowns if he is the guy and plays the full season, I mean, we got to take a chance here. So took a shot on Michael Penix passing TDs over 18.5. And then to follow that up, we also, we got down the rabbit hole of Atlanta Falcons offense, pass catchers, just kind of doing research on this Michael Penix bet. And we found another one we stumbled across, Kyle Pitts. And I know what everyone's thinking, it's Kyle Pitts. When is he going to take that next step? When is he going to show his true potential as a high first-round draft pick a few years ago? But we found a bet that is over 500.5 receiving yards at minus 115. Yeah, so consensus line on this one is 538, so we're getting an extra 38 yards, and that's priced at minus 115. We have some books at 550. And I mean, if you just take a look at projections, obviously, let's assume that he plays a full season. We have this projected at about 624 yards. And granted, he could get injured, but looking back at his career, just looking at his yards per game, 43 yards per game. So if Penix takes that step and we're right on our passing TD prop, then you got to think Kyle Pitts is going to be a part of that. We like this. We couldn't pass up that value. And that's what we're looking for here. So Penix and Pitts, and like I said, we have some other season-long props that we may dive on as well that we're evaluating, but stay tuned there in future episodes. And that's all of our NFL bets. So that's what, 6 bets so far on NFL futures. And I've said this in previous podcasts, I don't bet too many futures bets just because I don't like to have a ton of money wrapped up. I don't like to have a ton of my bankroll wrapped up in futures. And things change quickly throughout seasons. Injuries happen. We're already seeing it in the NFL in the preseason. And these things can go sideways pretty quick. So we really try to analyze these teams, run our metrics, run our numbers, try to find positive EV bets that we are confident in and possibly have a little bit of leeway given the injury risk and the fact that we could just be way off on these teams' outlook for the year. So we tend to stay pretty conservative in terms of the number of overall futures bets that we play. Moving on. Let's do college football. So the first bet we made this year in college football, back on one of the very first college football preview episodes that we did, which was the ACC. And this is the Virginia Tech Hokies. Over 6.5 wins, and we got this at plus 145, which I double checked today. This is no longer available, but there are still some plus numbers out there. And personally, I would still bet this over 6.5. If you can find any plus number for Virginia Tech on the over 6.5 wins, there's still value there. We project them at 7.1 wins with about a 65% chance of going over that 6.5 win total. So obviously at plus 145, there's a ton of value there, and it's value that we absolutely cannot pass up. This is a 6-win team last year. Lost 5 of 6 games by 1 score. Kyron Jones, our starting quarterback, did miss 4 of those games. So this very well could have been 7-8 win team last year. They had a solid offseason, bringing in quite a few guys on both sides of the ball to help improve this team. Also brought in 2 coordinators, offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. We think this Hokies team has underachieved the past couple of years, and this is a make or break year for head coach Brent Pry. So love this number. We also bet them at plus 4,500 to win the ACC. Just a small bet on that one. And, honestly, do we think Virginia Tech is going to win the ACC? Probably not. But at plus 4,500, we have this projected out as true odds should be around plus 2,800. So there's a ton of value. It's the most value that we have across looking across any college football conference, looking at the odds to win the conference versus what we're projecting. This is the most value that we found on any team. So we had to pounce on it, and we bet this back in end of May, and it's looking pretty good so far. I mean, the best number you can get right now is plus 4,000, so it has moved up a little bit, and I feel like Tech is one of those teams that no one's really talking about this year. And we see a ton of value here in this team having a bounce back year off of 6 wins and getting up to that 7, 8, maybe even 9 win, maybe even sneaking into an ACC championship game. But we think at this number, if we're correct on the win total and our projections, then there's going to be some value and some hedging opportunities later in the year on the Hokies, which I'm looking forward to. Next up, second bet that we made in college football, Oklahoma over 6.5 wins. This was a very expensive bet. This one initially made me nervous. I wasn't going to fire on it, but we do have the Sooners at 7.1 wins, and this is with a brutal schedule too. Oklahoma has one of the most difficult schedules in the country. But we like this team with John Mateer coming in. Oh, speaking of which, John Mateer is in the news lately. I'm sure everyone has seen the John Mateer Venmo transactions, the inside jokes allegedly. But hey, I'm not going to comment on that, but I am going to say it's going to be very hard to prove that he was actually betting back in 2022. Technically, he was enrolled at Washington State, so if he was betting, he'd be in quite a bit of trouble, which would obviously kill our Oklahoma futures bet. But at the same time, we're gonna assume that everything's gonna shake out there and be just fine, and Mateer will play. And if that's the case, we love this Oklahoma team. They needed a quarterback. Venables went in and got one. Also brought the OC from Washington State as well to lead this offense. Defense is going to be great. Front seven is awesome. It's going to be a very difficult team to run against. Secondary, we'll see. But we know this is definitely a bowl team, and we strongly believe they can get to that 7-win mark. We have them about a 65% chance of getting over 6.5 wins. So there was value there at minus 170. Double check here and see what this win total is sitting at now. But honestly, that's that's the limit for us as far as what we would bet this number at. It looks like some 7.5s have popped up plus money. Wouldn't touch that. Looks like there might be, DraftKings has a minus 150. So there's a number that's better than what we got. But it has moved up at a couple bucks too. So we'll see. We love the Sooners. We love this defense. Brett Venables, another coach that's could be in the hot seat if this team doesn't show up and get competitive and stay at least in the SEC championship race for most of the year. But we're all in on the Sooners. A couple other ones here. So Rice Owls, we have over 3.5 wins at minus 140. We love this Owls team. New head coach Scott Abel's bringing in this new look option offense. He's a winner everywhere he's been. He turned around FCS Davidson, historically really bad program, turned them into the playoff team. The schedule's not too bad for Rice. Minus 140, we saw a ton of value. We actually have them at 5 wins based on our numbers. 5.1 wins, so great value there. This is one of our top bets as far as win totals go. Rice is extremely undervalued this year. Syracuse, we got Syracuse under 5.5 wins at minus 155. We have them at 5 wins, right on the dot. True odds around minus 182, so we're loving the minus 155 here. And this is a team that won 10 games last year. Had Kyle McCord at quarterback, came in from Ohio State, but they lost a ton. They lost pretty much their entire receiving core. And this is a team that is they're due for a step back. And we think 5 wins may be generous given this schedule. But shop around here as well. We're loving the Syracuse orange. It looks like you can get a minus 1. Consensus is 155, so that's right where we bet it. That's still available. Looks like there's one minus 185s out there, so still can get a solid number on the Syracuse orange. Colorado Buffaloes, another one we bet under 6.5 wins. This was another expensive one, but this one has dropped though. I think we snagged we got it just before this dropped down to 5.5. And I think it's 5.5 still at most books out there. But we got minus 175. We paid a price for it, but we see the ceiling for this Buffaloes team this year at 6 wins. A lot of turnover. We know they lost Shador. They lost Travis Hunter, Heisman Trophy winner. They got a tough road ahead in the Big 12, very competitive Big 12, top to bottom. Ceiling, maybe 6 wins in a bowl game, but we have them just under 6 wins. Would bet this up to minus 188, so we got the minus 175, so there was just a little bit of value, enough for us to fire on this. And like I said, I think our numbers are even being generous, projecting them at six wins. I think this is probably a 5-win team. Then the last one we actually just bet this one today. This is the Troy Trojans, over 5.5 wins at minus 115. So Troy's an interesting team. They're historically been a winning program, successful program, especially in the Sun Belt. They have quite a few Sun Belt championships. Took a step back last year. They lost their head coach, John Summerall, to Tulane, who went on to win 10 games down there last year. And they did take a step back. Only won 4 games last year. Started off the season 1-7. They did finish the year strong. They did lose their starting quarterback. And to be honest, one all-time college football quarterback name, Goose Crowder. They lost him, I believe, week 2 last year. So they kind of struggled. They did finish strong, as I mentioned, winning 3 out of their last 4. Lost 3 close games. So this could have been a 5-6 win team. They did improve over the offseason. They have one of the best offensive lines in the Sun Belt. And we're all in on Goose Crowder and these Troy Trojans to get to 6 wins this year. We have them projected at 6.8. This is a big bounce back year for a team that historically is a perennial bowl team and very competitive in the Sun Belt. And it would not surprise me if this team made a run at the Sun Belt too. This is a conference that's very top heavy this year with JMU, the big front runner to win this conference, and I think they'll probably do it. But there's a lot of teams hanging around. So there's a few teams that can compete and make a run, and it would not surprise me if Troy was able to get a sneak into the Sun Belt Championship game this year. So we're loving some Goose Crowder and the Troy Trojans. We got this at -115. We've seen it up to -140 at some books. So this number has moved a little bit, but I think it looks like we just bet this today, so you can still get the -115 if you're interested on riding the Troy Trojans with us this year. And then one last one that we got to wrap up our college football portfolio, and we're adding up a few more bets too that we're going to evaluate over the next week or so. So we'll have some more updates next week. But the last one's Kent State, my alma mater, Kent State Golden Flashes. This poor football program, I think by far the worst FBS program in the country. I haven't won a MAC game since I think 2023. They do have a new coach coming in, but this roster's pretty depleted. And the bet we made, and we saw this on someone that we respect and follow online from the Action Network, who had posted this, that this was available. And it was under 1.5 conference wins. And I got it at -160. I think there were better numbers out there. But we jumped on it a little bit later, and it had already moved up. And I don't even know if it's even still available on DraftKings is where we found it. The only book we found this bet on. And it didn't quite add up because their season win total is also 1.5 wins. And considering they haven't won a MAC game in 2 years, we project them at 2.4 wins in the season. And let's assume that one win is FCS Merrimack. This gives us a leeway of them winning possibly one conference game. Maybe they upset Akron or somebody, Ball State, but they have a tough MAC schedule, and pretty confident this team is not going to win 2 conference games this year. So that was a lucky find. I don't know if this one's still available out there, but once again, sometimes these bets don't have to come from your own brain, own analysis. Sometimes things just pop up that you see, and I never recommend to follow any bets blindly, and that's what we try to preach here is, hey, I'm not telling you what to bet. I'm not telling you how to spend your money. I'm going to talk about my process and what I'm on and how I got there through a mix of handicapping these teams, but also having numbers and models to fall back on. And then also looking for price. That's the bottom line. But that being said, you don't have to do it all yourself. There are a lot of smart people out there that you can trust and you can follow, and you can see some of the bets they're making. And then if you agree and you can justify it using your own process that you have in place, then go ahead and fire away. Nothing wrong with that. And that wraps up. That's all we have so far for our futures portfolio. Like I said, we don't bet a ton of futures, but we really dive deep. We really try to find some significant value and some bets that we're confident in. I don't like to use the term best bets. I think all the bets that I make, if it's not a best bet, then I'm not making the bet in the first place. So these are all bets that we like to say are very cautiously optimistic, that fit our betting philosophy and our betting process, that we're going to look forward to watching throughout the season. Remember, you can bet futures throughout the season too. Just because you don't get something down before the season, there could be opportunities to pounce on some of these teams throughout the year, especially when it comes to conference championships, national championships, divisional winners. Some teams might start slow, or the opposite. Some teams might start hot, and there might be some value on some of these teams that still have a shot to make a run. So we'll talk about that throughout the year, how we're watching the market, teams we're eyeing up, teams we were right on, teams we were very wrong on. It's going to happen. Not every one of these bets are going to win. Goal is to profit, and then with some of these long shots, set up hedging opportunities later in the year. So that wraps it up, folks. Like I said, I'm pumped for next week. We actually, not going to lie, I'm tired of the talk, tired of the previews. I love doing it. I love diving into these teams, but at the same time, let's start playing some football. Let's actually bet on some games. And that's what we're going to do next week. So next week we'll dive into week 0. We'll have, as I mentioned, all of our college football lines for week 0 and week 1, any bets that we're on, what we're eyeing up, what we're leaning towards. And the same thing every week. NFL, college football. We'll do our weekly episodes. It'll be part recap of what went right, what went wrong over the weekend with our bets, and then also talking about what we're eyeing up for the next week. And also, obviously, talking about our process, how we're getting there. This is about learning. This is about getting better. It's about having a good time. But it's also about betting with intention, betting with process, and being smart and winning over the long term. So that's why we're here. That's all we have, folks. Until next week, cheers, everybody.